Spring is popping out all over, and it's time for spring cleaning. Be sure you don't forget your ductwork. Call Premier Heating and Air today and clear the dust from your ducts and keep your unit running smoothly. Through the end of April, receive a free indoor air treatment system with the price of a whole home duct cleaning. And with temperatures heating up, make sure you keep your cool with a $49 AC checkup special. Need a new unit? Get up to $2,000 off qualifying systems. Schedule a visit and get a quote today at premierishere.com. The choice is clear. Choose Premier. Premier Heating and Air, a locally owned and operated company. Offer ends April 30th.
I love to see such a full room and the chatter of everyone talking and networking and catching up. That's what today is all about, women in business, how we can network together, come alongside each other, whether it be businesses, relationships, opportunities. That's what today is all about, and we're so excited to have our sponsors and our guest speaker Shane with us today. But at first, if we can just bow our heads and return thanks. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you for today and for all of your many blessings. Lord, I thank you for all the ladies in this room that could join us today. Lord, I pray that you will be with each and every one of them. Lord, you know the circumstances, the struggles, the situations that we may have. And Lord, I just pray that you will just guide us and direct us and lead us in the way that you would have us to go. Lord, I pray today that you will just open our hearts and our minds, Lord, to the words and the ideas that Shane will bring to us. And Lord, that we could take those ideas and challenges, whatever it might be, back to the workplace and share with our other ladies and the women in business. And Lord, I just thank you for the food that's been provided to us today. Lord, I pray that you will just use it to the nourishment of our bodies so that we may serve you better. All these things we pray in your name. Amen. Amen. Okay, and at this time, I did say that we have some great sponsors that have sponsored women in business. We have Shell Realty and Westrock. So at this time, Michelle can come forward with a sponsor talk.
My name is Michelle Baird. I'm the broker and owner of Shell Realty. We opened in March of 2022 with a staff of 2, myself and Matt Meeks. If you want to wave to everybody, he's getting your tea this morning. And now we have a team of 18 agents. Some of them are here with me today. Ladies, if you'll stand up. In addition to being a broker, I am the mother of 5 children, which I think has helped me significantly run a business with multiple personalities. And people coming together. We run our business like a family. We have family dinners instead of meetings once a month. And so we get to hear bouncy ideas off of each other, etc. So we are housed here in Dublin, Georgia, but we also have a satellite office in Townsend, Georgia on the coast. And we have agents all over. So thank you for celebrating women in business, and I would look forward to the program. So,
hello. I'm Carrie Woodard. I'm the logistics manager for Westrock here in Dublin, Georgia. Forgive me, I am not a public speaker, and they picked the most southern person to speak today, so just try to understand what I'm saying, I guess. So I just want to start out by telling you a little bit about Westrock in Dublin. Many of you know us as Southeast Paper from way back 1979. We came online, we were a newsprint mill back then. We have since converted to container board, so what that means is bag products and boxes. So we got a room full of women, and I know none of you shop at Amazon, right? So if you've ever gotten an Amazon package in the mail, it's likely that our paper is part of that package. It's not the package, but we make the material that goes in to create those packages. Our material also goes into quick serve bags like McDonald's, Burger King, those type of things. So that's a little bit about what we do. We are a primarily male workforce. We employ about 300 people, and about 9% or so is female. So one of our big initiatives, our corporate initiatives, is to gain more female in our workforce and try to recruit and hire, hopefully, more women. There are jobs available. Women can do them. We know that for a fact, so we welcome women to West Rock. So we are happy today to participate in the Women in Business Luncheon and to support the women of Dublin and Lawrence County. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tom Dominy. Here at Dublin Wind Nelson, we pride ourselves on providing the industry's highest quality products at the most competitive pricing. We are a full-service wholesaler specializing in plumbing, irrigation, and industrial products. With a staff that collectively offers more than 50 years of expertise, our team knows your industry, and we can answer your questions and help you get the parts and equipment you need. From mowing to Renee, we carry the plumbing, irrigation, and industrial products you need from the brands you trust. We also carry a great lineup of Milwaukee tools. At Dublin Wind Nelson, our goal is the long-term success of your business. We achieve that goal with a simple commitment, doing things right, one customer at a time. If you have a question, or if you're looking for a hard-to-find part, give us a call. Our experts are ready to help. Order online, give us a call, or come by at 507 Airport Road in Dublin. We're committed to building long-term relationships with our customers by earning your business every day.
Imagine a life-changing injury. Imagine the fear and unknown. The Houston Clinic Sports Medicine Team, the only physicians in the area with advanced certification in orthopedic sports medicine, treats sports injuries with innovative techniques. The Houston Clinic has helped nearly 1 million athletes live without pain. Imagine getting back in the game. Imagine the best game of your life. The Houston Clinic Sports Medicine Team.
At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce Shan Cooper. Shan brings with her more than 30 years of experience in business operations, human capital management, transformation, including previous employment at West Rock as serving as the Chief Transformation Officer. And also enterprise work, risk management, community affairs, and economic development. She is the founder and chief executive officer of Journey Forward Strategies, LLC, which is a solution-focused consulting firm that specializes in leadership, development, and organization effectiveness. Shan's follow-through and drive have manifested themselves in several positions as well as honors. Shan serves as the executive director of the Atlanta Committee for Progress, a coalition of leading CEOs that are focused on critical economic development issues for the city of Atlanta. She currently serves on the board of directors for Southern Company, International Exchange, Grady Health Systems, board of trustees for Emory University, as well as Georgia Tech Research Institute, and many others. When not out inspiring others, mentoring business students, or providing stretch opportunities for her employees to continue to develop and grow, she's doing what her dad taught her to do through his own actions, meeting people where they are, whatever that is. The methodology is simple. Listen to understand, learn as much as you can, and don't make assumptions because everyone matters and everyone is important. Now please help me welcome Shan Cooper.
Well, it's so wonderful to see all of you. How are you? Okay, guys, so let me start by saying this. I am a pastor's kid, and they have given me a microphone. And I like microphones, and he's going to have to chase me with this camera. I'm going to apologize to you right now. But I like to move around the room so we can feel a connection here, right? And so my dad's a pastor, so I may say hallelujah, thank you, Jesus, amen in this talk, right? But it's just who I am, right? And so I'll tell you first and foremost, I am the world's best wife, Do not fact check that with my husband, okay? Just take my word for it, right? I am a mother of one daughter and 2 granddaughters who are absolutely perfect children. And I tell you that because oftentimes people will look at my resume and I just don't quite sound human, right? So I bleed like everybody else. I was in one women's session and a lady raised her hand. She said, Shan, do you do your own laundry? I'm like, yes, I do, because I don't want people touching my underwear. I do my own laundry, right? But sometimes when you're in these corporate roles, right, people just think you are just different. No, I'm exactly like all of you, all right? And so I want today to be about us having a conversation. So I don't have any charts. I'm going to do a little bit of storytelling, but I want to leave most of our time together for you all to ask questions about the things that you want to talk about, all right? Now, I am being taped today, so I'm going to have to be a little bit more careful in what I say and what I share, but I'm going to be as candid as I possibly can. Is that fair enough? Wonderful. And the other thing I would say is that, none of us get to where we are without others, right? So I am grateful that Brittany Edwards is here with me today. She's probably the only reason why I showed up here today. She keeps me in line and makes sure I'm doing things I want to do, but I love working with Brittany. She's absolutely special to me and a part of my family. I also want to thank Michelle and her team for sponsoring today's lunch in West Rock. You guys know you guys rock, right? Loved my tenure there, and we'll talk about that. And so I often, say to the Lord, like, Lord, why have you taken me through all of this? Because if you read my bio, you'll see I spent most of my career in Lockheed Martin, right? And the latter half of that building military aircraft and weapon systems. I know you look at me today and say, oh my gosh, she's so cute. How could that possibly be, right? And I want to talk to you about that journey because I think sometimes, and I know that the topic is today is, how do we take on, how to be everything to everyone else? I don't want you to be everything to everybody else, right? So I think as women, we do that too much. We take on the world, right? And so because of that, I'm very much a different kind of leader. And so my guys, and they were guys, right? That's what they were. I was often the only woman, and particularly the only woman of color as well, and we'll talk about that. But people will bring you all of their issues and leave them with you if you receive them. But after today, lady, we're no longer receiving, right? Because one thing that we don't do well, we don't do self-care well. And so when I'm coaching women, there are 3 things that we talk about. Know thyself, right? Know thy value, because oftentimes in organizations, we forget how valuable we are, right? And it tends to impact our careers when we do that. Then I want you to know your path. But I want to talk about, again, knowing thyself, right? And so oftentimes, we're put in these places where we know our capabilities and we know our skill sets, right? But sometimes, if we're not careful, we'll lose our way. So let me give you an example of what I mean by that. Knowing thyself and knowing your value to the organization. So I spent most of my career at Lockheed Martin in human resources, right? And so I was known in the company, 146,000 people in 72 countries. Everybody knew me as an HR executive. So when this opportunity became available, right, to transition out of human resources to an operations role, I really, really wanted that job. And up until that point at Lockheed Martin, if you were considered a high potential, you were just moved every 3 years. Unfortunately for me, I was on the track where they were moving me every 2 years. And I'm thinking, oh God, at this point now I'm married, before I'm single, so I could do all those crazy things. But now I'm married, I'm like, I don't really want to keep moving around the world every second of every 2 years, what have you. And so this particular position comes open. And the CEO of Lockheed Martin says to me, well, I can't give you this role, Shan, because up until that, if you're in the high track, they just appoint you, you just get assigned, right? You don't interview, you just get assigned to a job, because they're testing your skills and building you up, right? And so he says to me, I can't give you this job, you gotta go compete for this one. And so it's an operations job, right? You're running a multi-billion-dollar organization there in Marietta, another plant in Mississippi, and another plant in West Virginia. And so I really want this job. So guys, I get prepared. And the reason why they want to appoint me to the role is because there are several men, right, who had worked at this facility for decades, right, and really wanted this role. I got the role. I won the competition, right? And so the day I show up, somebody needs to answer the phone. The day I show up, it could be very important, I don't know. The day I show up, there's a newspaper article that my assistant brings in to me, and Melanie says, you might want to read this before you go out into the plant. And in the article, they have interviewed one of my employees, right? didn't name the employee, but talked about how horrible I was going to be. The plant was going to shut down because how could they possibly bring this person in, right? From human resources, number one, first woman to be in the job and first non-engineer. So 3 strikes already coming in, right? I took that article, I placed it on my desk, and for 6 months it sat there. And it sat there for a couple of things, right? One, part of it was true. Everybody in the free world knew I had never built an airplane, right? Or a weapon system, didn't know what that was about. So I had a job to learn. But I knew, when I talk about knowing yourself, I knew what strengths that I brought to that job, right? I had worked hard to prepare for that role. First time I had to interview in Lockheed Martin. Everything else I had been kind of positioned in. And so, article sits there. A couple of other things are happening, right? So what I have to do, first thing I had to recognize and really understand, look, what do I bring to the role? I bring people strategy to this role, right? I understand finance, right? And so ladies, if you're in a business and you don't understand, you don't have financial acumen, I want you to work on that, right? Lockheed Martin at its core is a technology company. I understand technology, right? And so I knew the things I brought to the role, and had I not known that, I would have been devastated, right? Looking at this article, knowing everybody in the community had seen this article about me, right? And so I said, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna learn this job, and then I'm gonna go ask for my own interview with this paper, right? Took me about 6 months, right, to really feel like I had it. Now, in that 6-month time period, my customers didn't stop calling me, right? Lockheed Martin there in Marietta is what we call a GOCO, which means that it's a government-owned property that is managed by a contractor, right? So Lockheed Martin manages Air Force Plant number 6, right, for the Air Force. And so my base commander was not ready, was not waiting for me to get trained or whatever in the role. And so in the meantime, right, I had to do a couple of things. First, I had to address the guys who didn't get the job, right? Because I needed them. I needed them. I had to listen to them, their disappointment, their anger about not getting the role, right? Then I had to move on, right? So had that conversation, not in my office, not in their office, neutral location, so we could talk. And I was real clear again. I need you in the role, don't need you to leave, but I need you in the role. The other thing I had to do was I had to find somebody who would help me learn the job, right? What I call my trusted advisor when I go into a new role, that would help me learn the role so that I could be more competent in the job, right? And so until I got ready, I just faked it until I made it, right? Told my commander, don't have the answer to that, but I'll be back with the answer, right? But really leveraging, again, not forgetting who I was and what value I brought to the role. It happened to be at a time where we were going through a transition where we were having people take an early retirement package. And so what does human resources people do, right? We understand people's strategy, right? And so that was the strength that I brought to that. So I had to build a team at the same time. And so it becomes critical when I'm talking particularly to our early career professionals, right? Know your strength, know who you are, know what you bring to an opportunity. Not gonna be easy, right? So I feel like I was back in college, actually. I was studying so hard, trying to learn these aircraft and trying to learn this job. 6 months, though, I was there. In the meantime, though, I was still having to talk to Washington. I was still having to do all the things that my predecessor had to do, right? But I did it with confidence, right? Because I knew, look, I have demonstrated learning agility, right? I'm in this role because I earned this seat. And I'm not gonna be arrogant about that, but I'm gonna own the seat, right? And so oftentimes as women, right, and I've seen this so many times being in human resources, we talk ourselves out of what I call our assignment. So I told you guys I'm a preacher's kid, right? So I believe we live life on assignment. That happened to be my assignment at that time, right? And so, but we will talk ourselves out, well, I have never done it. I don't have the skill set to do it. But you can learn, right? And as long as you can demonstrate learning agility, you can do really whatever you want to do. You just have to be committed to learning the role, right? Which is what I tell my young ladies, right, in careers, right? And so that was a lesson learned for me, knowing who I am, right? Being confident in that, not arrogant, but confident in that, and then being willing to learn what I need to learn, right? Now, there's this part of me, though, I'll tell you, that is not coachable, okay? Right? This part of me that's not coachable. And that is my value system. I just told you guys I'm a pastor's kid, right? So there are certain things about Shan that is just Shan. I don't leave it at the door when I come into the workplace, right? My father and my mom taught me I was Pentecostal growing up. If you guys know the Pentecostal faith, right? We shout, we speak in tongues, we do it all, y'all. And so, y'all know. And thank God my dad finally said makeup was okay, because I don't ever leave home without this makeup, okay? Thank you, Jesus. Okay. But with that, again, so as you're going through your career, this is why it's important that you know who you are, right? So in my career, I've always had mentors, right? And we all need mentors. I needed one coming into Lockheed Martin. I knew specifically what I wanted to learn, right? And specifically who I wanted to mentor me, what have you. I'm laying the groundwork so you guys can get your questions together. I'm gonna stop talking here in a minute. And so we all need mentors. I've been very blessed to have very good ones that would tell me, Shan, the baby's ugly. Shan, the baby's cute. Shan, the baby's really coming along, right? You know what I'm saying? And so you need those people in your life, right? I don't like yes people all the time, right? And so when I was looking to build my team, and any team I'm building, there are a couple of things that I look for. First is integrity and ethics, right? I got to be able to trust that when you tell me something, I can believe it, right? And the last person, well, maybe the next to the last person that I fired, was the fact that she lied to me in my face, right? And there was no reason for it. You don't ever have to lie. I tell my team, listen, if it's not illegal, unethical, immoral, and nobody dies, we can fix it, right? But you gotta be honest with me about what's happening here, right? And I'm gonna create the environment where you can bring me the ugly stuff, right? And so I'm not gonna scream, I'm not a screamer, and I do everything with a smile. And my team would tell you that if they were here today, they'd say, oh yeah, we would always know when Shan was upset though, because she'd always ask the question, now how did we get here? I never knew I did that, but they knew it, right? And so anyway, so we all need mentors, people to help us kind of navigate, what's going on. But there are some things, right, again, that I'm gonna hear it, I'm gonna receive it, because they say feedback is a gift, which means it's returnable. If it doesn't align with my value system, because I know who I am, I'm not going to receive the feedback that doesn't fit, right? And so I can remember my boss, this is when I was on the HR side, I was the inaugural diversity and equity lead for Lockheed Martin. First person ever had that role, didn't know exactly what I was doing, but went and asked a mentor, right? I picked up the phone, I was reading an article one day, I'm accepting this job. This is before I became the operations leader here, and looking through a magazine, and I see IBM, I see Ted Childs. He's the head of diversity and equity for IBM. And at that time, they were leading in the field, right, globally. And I've gotten this job, I've said yes to it, I'm like, now what do I do with it? Because I was used to being in sales at that point, right? So I had no idea, what really is this job? And so I went and I picked up the phone and I called Ted. I said, hey, listen, I'm in this new job, you don't know me, but I need your help. I need to figure out what I'm doing in this role, right? I am never one who's afraid to ask for help. We all need it, but you just have to ask the right person, right? You know who you're asking. That trusted advisor becomes important. And I called him, he said, well, how quickly can you get to New York? And I spent 3 days with him in New York, benchmarking how they did the work there in IBM, right? And so asking for help, being true to my value system and who I am, but my boss, this is the story I was telling you. So one day I get my performance review, and he has put in the performance review that I am aggressive. Now, ladies, we cannot allow people to label us, right? Now, if that were true, because again, I know who I am, right? I would receive that, right? And say, I want to go work on that. But I wanted to understand, because as a black woman, I couldn't have that adjective follow me in my career, right? And so I went to see him. I said, Terry, I said, I need to ask you something. You put here that I'm aggressive. What does aggressive mean to you? And then I want you to give me some examples of that behavior. Because if it's a behavior that I'm exhibiting, I can change that, right? I need to change that, because I don't need to be seen as aggressive. And we talked about it. Of course, we had different definitions of aggressive, right? And I said, so he said, well, Shan, you're just always asking questions. And he was my boss. I want the team to go here. You're asking questions. Well, let me tell you why I ask questions. Because I want to make certain that you and I are aligned and that I fully understand the vision that you're laying out. So that's why I ask you questions, right? Because I need to fully understand. And he sat back and said, well, that makes perfect sense. That's not aggressive. So we took it out of the performance review, of course, right? As you would expect. And so, again, that's why it's so important that you know who you are, know your strengths, and then you got to advocate for yourself, right? I am never afraid, I probably scare the men actually, to ask for what I want, right? To give my opinion about things. And there's a way to do that, right? Without being emotional and what have you. Because I think sometimes we scare men. They're like, oh God, if I give Shan that feedback, she's going to cry. Nobody's crying. It's a word, right? What did we learn? Sticks and stones may break my bones or something like that. Remember that? You have an opinion and I have an opinion. I hope I agree with your opinion, because if I don't, we've got to have a conversation, right? But with a smile, right? And so when we think about this topic of, how to be everything to everyone else, I had to learn that, to be honest, because I thought leadership was I had to have all the answers. And so when you are in a big leadership role, so I had, even at Westrock, I had people all over the world. I had people in China, I had people in Brazil, I had people all over the world, right? Well, I can't be in all these places, right? So the key becomes I had to put leaders in place who aligned with my value system, right? And who had good judgment. When I'm looking for leaders, I'm looking first for people who are ethical and honest, and second, have good judgment. Because you have to represent me as the leader, right? And I need to know that you're going to make good decisions. And you may not always make the right decision, because I haven't made the right decision in all my decisions, right? But when you make the decision, you need to be able to explain how you got to that decision. And as I said, if it's not illegal, immoral, unethical, nobody died, we can fix it, right? And so I want you first thinking about self-care, because we don't do that as women. And like I said, when I first got to leadership, people would bring me all kinds of stuff. Shan, this is broken. These people won't work together. That's happening. And I'd just be running around like a chicken with my head because I'm trying to fix it all, right? It was crazy. Let me tell you, it was crazy. And I thought, wait, why am I doing this? And I happened to be talking to my dad one day, and I just watched it. He and my mom have been like the perfect role models, right? Because when you're dealing with church people, oh my God is all I can say. There is hell in the church people, right? And so, but I watched them over the years how they would deal with things. People are constantly taking their pastor's issues, right? Pastor, pray for me. My dad, I'll pray if you pray. You that kind of thing, right? And they were constantly, and so I'm like, you know what? Let me stop trying to carry all of everybody's issues, right? And so when people would bring me things, I'm like, yep, I hear what you're saying. Let me give you some ways to think about that differently. But you're going to go have to solve for that, right? And so it freed me up when I had people I could trust and when I would give people back their problems, right? And again, if they were in dire straits, what have you, here, let me get you to a resource. Here, let me what have you, right? But I am always going to, and I had to learn this, right? Think about how I'm spending my time first. Because I needed to be there for my husband. I needed to be there for my daughter. You know what I'm saying? These kinds of things. And when I recognized there are sometimes these jobs, and I never had a vacation. I'll be honest with that, right? But here's what I would do, though, because you can always control your time, right? And so I would tell my team, listen, regardless of where I am in the world on vacation, I'm going to check email once a day, 5 p.m. Eastern time, okay? When you are emailing me, right, you're going to have to put urgent or action required in the subject line, because I'm only scanning email. I'm on vacation, right? But I know I can't completely let go, right? And so they learned how to do that. And then the other thing I would say to them, listen, when you're on vacation, don't call me, because you're putting me at risk, because that means you're not training your people behind you. And if you get hit, I don't say hit by a bus, but I would say that, hit by a bus, I need to know this operation is going to continue to run, right? And so I became very mindful of how I spent my time. And I only showed up for things that only I could fix, right? I only showed up when the general needed to see me. You know what I'm saying? I only showed up when Steve Voorhees needed me at Westrock, right? Or as one of our senior customers. I only showed up then. The rest of the time, you know what? I'm developing the team. You go, and you go, and you go, because I don't have to go. Freed up my time, right? Allowed me, again, to be true to myself, right? And just recognize you're not going to always get it right. I haven't always gotten it right. But I am grateful to say a couple of things. One, I've only missed I only missed one major family event. I missed my niece graduating from nursing school, and it would have been cheaper for me just to go to her graduation, trust me. But everything else, I was there. I was there. Determined that, faith, family, and then career. And I've always lived my life that way. As a matter of fact, I left Lockheed Martin at a time when my career was doing this because they wanted me to relocate again to Denver, Colorado. And I looked at my husband, and he looked miserable. And I said, I'm not doing this to him again. Because I would move, right? And I'd have a network in the new city because I was going to work. I had my work family, right? Well, he wouldn't have anybody. I was his only friend. God help me. And so I had to make sure this man had friends, right? But again, that's how I've lived my life. That's how I've spent my entire career. So if it got to be the point where my family wasn't happy, Shannon, you've got to make a change. You've got to make a change. Now, sometimes I would say to him, now, look, I'm on assignment, right? And you guys, for those of you, I don't want to be, too preachy here, but again, my dad's a pastor, right? So that's how I grew up. That's who I am. But I do believe we live our lives on assignment. So I tell people, I actually resigned from Lockheed Martin twice before I got out. And what I recognized was that I couldn't leave because sometimes you have to be in position, right, ladies, for somebody else, right? So I look back now at all the people who got promoted because I was in the role that I was in. And then sometimes I had to be in the role for me. And I'll tell you, God has a way, right? So when I went back, so I left Lockheed Martin at one point, I went back in 2002, and I went back. You talk about public humiliation. So I go back. They're like, oh, Shan, we're going to bring you in at the director level. So it was a big deal to be a director in Lockheed Martin. It was the next level was a vice president and then the CEO. And I'm uprooting my life from Atlanta, moving to Maryland, the headquarters there. I'm in the job for 2 weeks, and down comes one of the HR business partners to my office, and she was like, Shan, I just need to tell you that we're going to have to lower your level. We're going to have to demote you. And I'm listening, okay? I thanked her. I said, Judy, thank you for coming to tell me that, because she was nervous. Her voice was quivering. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna scare this woman. But anyway, and I said, thank you for sharing that with me, but I obviously need to have a conversation with the boss, right, who's the head of HR. And I had come into Lockheed Martin to do the diversity role. And this was back in 2002. And, and at that point, diversity was, it was a hot topic or what have you, kind of like it is, not as bad as it is today, but kind of like that, right? And I think today the issue is, the fact that we really need to have a conversation about race, but somehow we can't bring ourselves to do that. But diversity at its core, when I was leading the function, was really about creating value for the company. So we've lost the definition of diversity, right? And so I'm in this role 2 weeks. I'm a director for 2 weeks, guys. And then it's like, okay, no, you're really a senior manager. And I went to the boss and said, listen, there's obviously something going on here that I'm not sure what's going on, but here's what's going to happen, right? I'm going to give you a strategic plan, because that's what you brought me in to do. It should take me about 6 months to get that done. Then you're going to move me back to Atlanta. And I had all these stipulations, right? Blah, 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 blah. And I was very professional, didn't raise my voice, still had to smile. I still smile, always smiling always. And I said, but you're going to move me back, and here's what I want to do that, blah, blah, blah. And he just said, okay, fine, Shan. We didn't put anything in writing. It was just a conversation, right? And 6 months in the job, I had the strategic plan. I had run around the country, getting to know the company, had a strategic plan ready for them to go, and I got promoted. Maybe 3 to 6 months after that, I was a vice president, right? But going through the process, I'm like, I can't believe this is happening to me. It was embarrassing. They put all these news articles across the company. You know how they do, right? Shan Cooper is coming. Shan Cooper, whatever, what have you. I was carrying. She's coming. We're going to do this, all this diversity work, what have you. And so everybody knew I came in as a director, right? And I've been just public. To me, that was just public embarrassment, public humiliation. But I wore that title. So I'm like, I'm not my title, right? I'm about performing. And when I got promoted to the vice president role, Terry said to me, he said, you know what, Shannon? He said, we talked about you, because anybody else would have been so angry and so mad. But your emotional intelligence and how you handled that made it real clear to us that we needed you at a higher level in the company, right? And so I think sometimes we go through these things, one, to test us, absolutely, to make us stronger, right? So that's when I like using the word resilient, right? Because when we have to be resilient in these organizations. And so there's probably not much that hasn't happened to me, that's happened to you, right? What have you. But I just want to encourage you today to really be resilient and be relevant, right? To me, those are the two things you can do in organizations, right? That ensure that you're going to be in the assignment that you need to be in at the time, okay? So I'm going to pause there before I tell another story and see if there are any questions or comments. How many of you think that's true? Have I said anything that you disagree with? You want to dig into something that I've said so far? Yes, ma'am. I see a hand right here. But I've got to come to you because they can't capture this. So here I am. Oh, no. No, I'll let you hold that. Why don't you hold that?
You just mentioned emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. How do you train someone for that? How do you help someone learn that? I think.
Yeah. And it's coachable. It really is. Did you all hear the question? This whole notion on emotional intelligence. One, it really is about choosing to be in control. Now, I had to choose and pray really hard to stay in control after I have relocated to a whole new state, right? And you just told me the job that I was getting, I'm no longer getting, right? And so, but I chose, right, to be in control of my emotions. I'm sure I took the time to breathe before I went to Terry's office, but you do have to choose to do that, right? And then you're going to be disappointed. You're going to be angry at these jobs. And I just tell people, look, I choose to save my emotions for my family and my friends, because they're the only ones that really care at the end of the day, right, in most organizations, not the family-oriented organization that Michelle has, but in most companies, right, you're 146,000 people. It's like, okay, whatever, Shan, right? You know what I'm saying? And so I just choose to not bring all that, with me, right? But the other thing I do is I don't allow the conflict to fester, right? And I had to learn that. So I can tell early in my career, guys, I would be in the mirror at the house, and I'd be thinking about a conversation. Oh, I should have said this. I should have said this. You wait till I see them tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? And I'm practicing in the mirror. Crazy, right? Crazy. Why didn't we're adults in the workplace. Why didn't I have that conversation in the moment, right? But if you're going to act in the moment, though, you got to really keep those emotions in check, right? And you got, again, like, okay, I'm going to deal with the conflict. And oftentimes, that's what we fail to do, right? Because nobody wants, and I don't see this conflict. I just see it as two adults having a conversation. You know what I'm saying? And I think if you think about it that way, it allows you to behave in a way that people say, gosh, she's pretty calm about that, right? She's not screaming. She's not, Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? Focused on the issue and not the person is another way of thinking about that. And sometimes that's hard, right? Because we'll have people who really just want to get under our skin. Nope, Going to focus on the mission, going to focus on the situation. And Sally, you do whatever you want to do, but this is how I choose to respond to this. And I'm not going to expend my energy. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? Sure. Yeah, absolutely wonderful. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Is that Miss Jackie over there? Yes, ma'am. Okay, Miss Jackie. Y'all know what? We need a microphone. I think we're going to need this microphone, Miss Jackie. Hold on.
I'm trying to get to you.
Don't get up. Come here.
Good morning, everyone. My question is this, and it's a little bit outside the box. How do you feel about artificial intelligence in the workplace thing?
Yeah, great question. So first of all, if you guys are not, so I grew up in a technology company, right? So I like technology. If you are not learning about, and I'm going to say generative AI, because AI has been around for a long time. If you use Google, if you use all those companies, it's been around for a long time. The difference now is generative AI, which means that technology can actually create new information. That's the difference, right? And so I'll tell you, I sit on 3 corporate boards, as you heard Jennifer talk about, and we're all trying to decide what our AI strategy is going to be, right? Because you really want to protect your information. You have to protect your your crown jewels, that information that is absolutely your competitive advantage, right? But when you've got employees out there and they're using the internet and they're doing these kinds of things, you really have to have thought that through. And so what most of us are doing is we are setting up our own internal AI system, right? So you can generate information using company data, but it's not exposed to the internet. It is all internal inside our firewalls, right? And so as I think about AI, I think it can be a force for good, but the bad apples are going to use it, right, against us in our companies, right? So we still have to be mindful of it. But I think you start to think about, the way I want to think about it, how do you use it as a defensive mechanism, right? How do you use it against the bad guys before they use it against you? So it's a new space. We're all learning it. I sit on the board of Intercontinental Exchange. Many of you probably don't know that company, but we're on the New York Stock Exchange. How many people do you think are trying to break into the New York Stock Exchange, right? And so, and not only that, we own clearinghouses around the world, right? Where all this financial information, these assets are moving across these tools and these platforms. And so we have to be really, really mindful. And so I would say learn as much as you can about it. I'm in study right now on it. I read a great book, and I won't remember the name of it. I'll try to remember before I go, but I want everybody in this room to have AI experience and understanding. Is that a deal? It is going to be the future, right? Whether we want it or not, it's here. Now we just have to figure out how we manage it and how we control it, and that it's used for a force of good, not evil. Great question. Oh, Miss Jackie, you're thinking about some good stuff. Okay. Did that help? Did that help you at all?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. Anybody else have another quick question? I'm going to make sure I keep us on time. Okay, let me talk a little bit then about, I mentioned to you all that I've only had 2 bad days in my career. Usually somebody says, Sharon, you had 2 bad days. Tell us about those. Let me start with the second one first, and I'll come back to the first, and I'll close on that one if you have questions. So I mentioned being in this wonderful job at Lockheed Martin, and it's a challenge. So we've got one aircraft program that for some reason we're behind schedule, we're we're over budget, and we just can't seem to get this thing right? And so I'm going to go, and I'm going to go off, and I'm going to learn from another site. So I'm up at the Lockheed Martin Greenville location one day to do some benchmarking, and I get a call, and it is my base commander, and he is basically saying to me, I won't quote what he said because I'm on camera, but basically, in other words, he just said to me very respectfully, Shannon, I've lost confidence in you and your team in building a quality product. I'll leave it at that, right? And I was devastated. I'd never had a customer give me that kind of feedback. And so, but I'm there with my boss too, right? So I'm like, okay, boss, I've got to go back to the plant. And so I said to the commander, I said, listen, sir, if you will not shut me down, because the worst thing you can do if you're in manufacturing and production, is to shut down the production line. It is so costly to restart again, right? So if you'll just give me a chance, it's a Friday afternoon, give me a chance, and I'll come see you Monday morning to let you know how this is not ever going to happen again. And now, mind you, his team is in his ear saying, shut them down. They've had too many chances, shut them down. But he said, okay, I'll see you Monday morning. So I'm driving back. I tell my boss I've got to go. I'm driving back to Marietta. And as I'm driving, I'm calling the plant. And I'm telling my production operations guys, look, I need to meet with the team. I'm on my way back. I need to meet with everybody. Don't let anybody leave until I get there. And I said to myself, but I want to meet with the mechanics. I don't want to meet with the leadership team. I don't want to meet with the supervisors. I need to meet, I'm on a short leash. We're on a short deadline. I need to meet with the mechanic, the folks who actually know the job. And my philosophy has always been decisions at the lowest point of impact, right? If you're closest to it, you need to be the decision maker around it, not me, not your supervisor, what have you. And so I thought I had kind of put that message out there. Obviously, had not done that well. And so I get back to the plant, and I walk into the room, and around the table there are the mechanics, right? Mechanics. Leadership standing along the wall. Paradigm shift, right? Because normally I'd have my leaders at the table, right? And so I'm saying, again, how do we get here, right? How do we get here? I've got to report to the base commander on Monday. How do we get this fixed? And so we talked through it. And so through that process, I recognized, okay, I don't have the culture that I thought I had at the organization, right? Because I got an organization where clearly we as leaders were not listening. And that is a skill that I work on, and I've been working on for many, many decades, being an effective listener. And it's hard for leaders to do because we're supposed to have all the answers, right? The reality is we don't have hardly any answers, right? The folks who are doing the work know the work better than we do. We have the conversation. I'm able to see the commander on Monday. But I know and I recognize, I sent a message, right? This is different from my leadership team. And I'm certain they're feeling demoralized. So I've got to go have the conversation with them, right? Get them back on kilter and just say to them, look, I haven't lost trust in you, but I needed an answer. And I've asked that we always work at, decisions at the lowest point of impact, right? And I felt like in the time frame that we had, I needed to hear from them. And guys, they had the answer. They knew exactly what we needed to do. The problem was they had been telling their supervisor and leadership team for quite some time what to do, right? And I'll say this very gingerly. This was a situation where people could have lost their lives, okay? This is why this is so serious, right? But in that process, I learned some things, right? So I thought I had like the perfect culture and the perfect environment, right? When I quickly recognized that was not the case because I had a leadership team that wasn't listening. And we had to change that because the work is too complex, the work is hard, and the work is very complex in terms of you have to really watch and know what you're doing, right? Somebody's beeping. Is that for me to shut up? Okay. Okay. That's okay. Just want to make sure. Jennifer, you got my time, right? Thank you. And so we worked through it. We worked at the weekend. We got it, and I went to see the commander on Monday. I thanked him for not shutting me down. He said to me, Shane, I didn't shut you down because everything you told me that you would do, you've done it. You've delivered in the past. And I wanted to trust you on that. And I thanked him profusely, right? Had a plan. This was not going to happen again. But I knew I had to go back and do something different with my team, right? And so we went on this cultural transformation journey. And if you haven't read the book, Change the Culture, Change the Game, it is an awesome read. But that was a framework that I used to do this cultural transformation. And a key part of the transformation is a couple of things. One is feedback. And I don't know what it is about leaders. I know it's nobody in this room, right? We struggle to give people feedback, right? Feedback is to make people better. And so you need the feedback, right? And oftentimes, I'll have to say, we as women, we don't get that, right? Because people don't want to make us cry or they don't want to make us, uncomfortable, right? And so, but if you're not getting feedback, go ask for it. And say, no kidding. I really need to tell me, am I doing good stuff or am I not being good? Because otherwise you can't grow, right? And so I can remember being in HR and I had leaders tell me, they call me and say, Shan, I want to fire, what's your name, dear? Deborah. I want to fire Deborah on Monday. And I would say, then the first thing I would do, Deborah, is I would go pull your performance reviews for the past 3 years, and guess what? You were perfect. You walked on water, all of that, right? And I would have to go back to that leader and say, no, you're not firing Deborah on Monday, she's yours, because you haven't given her feedback, right? And you put the company at risk when you want me to fire somebody for you or with you, right? And you've told them they're great and they're wonderful. You got to give her feedback. She has time to see if she can change and be better, right? And so leaders would hate when I do that. But they knew, oh my God, don't go talk to Shan because she won't let you fire anybody, right? I'm like, no, you do your job, I'll do my job, right? But I'm not going to put the company in a situation. And so we learned how to give each other feedback. And that was what needed to happen, right? And I had to make sure my leaders understood, listen, I don't expect you to have all the answers, right? I just expect you to know where to go to get the answers, right? I need you to be resourceful, but I don't expect you to have all the answers, right? And that was how they had grown up. Many of them have grown up in the military, and so you just had to know. And I'm like, no, I don't expect you to know all that. But I do expect you to develop your people, right, and give them feedback. But more importantly, they should be able to give you feedback. And so part of the practice that I started, too, was at the end of every meeting, every engagement, whatever, I said, well, what feedback do you have for me? And the first time I did it, it was like, she's crazy. I'm not telling her anything because she's going to write me whatever, right? But it became the norm of how we work together. So what feedback? Because it made me better, right? I'm representing them, so I needed the feedback as well. And sometimes you get to be so senior in these jobs, you don't get feedback anymore. Well, I wanted feedback, right? And so we worked at that. But the number one thing I had to do was figure out a way to pull this team together, right? My workforce was 50% salaried, 49% represented by the union. So it was them and they did it, and it was just don't have time for that, right? And so we went on this journey, and we had a book club, and every Friday somebody would have to present to me a chapter in the book, right? It's a short, but it's not a long, but short book. And so I forget, if you're teaching it, then you're learning it, right? You're somehow taking it in better versus my telling you. So we had a book club. We'd meet every Friday, and somebody would have to report out and give examples and all those kinds of things. But the one thing that I really went on my listening tour doing was really understanding what it meant to work at Lockheed Martin, right? Why did people come to work every day? And we went on this discussion. I'd have people tell me, Shannon, I only come for the insurance, right? Because Lord knows I need this insurance. We had great insurance at Lockheed Martin, right? And that was okay, because I wanted them to be honest, right, about why they come to work every day. And so we went on this journey, and so two things came out of that. My mantra had always been mission first, people always. If I can get people focused on the mission, a lot of the conflict doesn't happen, right? If we're aligned on what we're here to do, then when things come up, okay, does that help or hinder the mission, right? Because we're going about the mission, right? But the mission doesn't happen without people. And so that's why I think you can't separate your business strategy from your people strategy. And so that was one thing. But when we got to this purpose discussion, one of the things that we all agreed on, all three of my locations, was the fact that, we come to work every day to build military aircraft and weapon systems that would bring the warfighter back home to his or her family every single time. Think about that, right? That's a real commitment to first-time quality. But we all agreed on that, and that was our purpose. And so when things would come up, is it aligned with our purpose? Is it aligned with the mission? Then yes, we can do that, or no, we shouldn't do that, what have you, right? But generating purpose was, and so out of that one day of like shock and awe, right? All of this occurred to me that I had to build a different kind of team, a different kind of work environment, and we got there. And so that aircraft program, in 6 months, we were on schedule and under budget, right? That's the power of being able to bring people together, right? It was hard work, because that meant on a listening tour, I was in smaller groups than this, just very small groups, listening. And sometimes the feedback was hard to receive, I'm gonna tell you, right? I'll never forget one of the guys said to me, I feel like I'm coming to a prison when I drive here every day. Because what you all want me to do, you want me to come in here, you want me to work hard, and you don't want me to bring my brain into the workplace. You just want to tell me what to do. That wasn't the environment that I wanted, right? I wanted it to be an environment where everybody felt they were contributing to the mission, right? Contributing to the mission. So we had to change that. I'm grateful that my leadership team they were aligned with me. They wanted to go on this journey with me. You can imagine men said, "Oh my God, I got to sit down and read a book," right? Oh, is she crazy? But they did it. And here's the one thing I did. I said, "Listen, if you can't do this, I need you to come see me." Because they were coming out of the job if they couldn't do it. And so one of my best guys, the one I didn't need to come see me, came to see me, and he was like, Shannon, I can't do this. And I said, tell me why. And he said, it just feels so touchy-feely, right? So I had to walk him through how this is going to be about getting business results, right? And the book talks about our experiences as employees drive our belief system, right? Which then drive our behaviors, which give us a result. And so if I could create a good experience for the employees, right, then they're going and actually do what we say we're going to do, right? Do what we say we're going to do. They begin to believe, and they're going to behave in a different way. And that was what we built. And so it was a hard, long process, for a leader, but we did it. But that's what leaders do, right? You create the environment for your folks to have an experience that benefits you and your business, right? Make sense? Questions or comments? Okay, I don't see any. So one last story, and I'm going to get off stage. Leadership, ladies, is hard, it is challenging, but it's a privilege, right? And so I started off by saying being true to yourself and how important that is, right? Particularly in moments of chaos and confusion, right? So I'm sitting in my office, it's a summer morning, and I always got to work, I was in my office by 6:30. I got there that early. The plant started operating. At this point I was at corporate, but I always like to get in early because I like to just get my day planned or whatever, right? Don't start with emails, lady, it throws off your whole day, right? But I like to get in there, just plan my day, think it through, what have you. And so most people came into corporate like 9 o'clock or what have you. 6:30, and I get the call, and it is the head of HR saying to me, I need you to get to the corporate jet. I need you to get to the Meridian facility. We've had a shooting. What we know right now is the shooter is dead. At that point, I think we had 8 deceased and several wounded. And he said, I don't have time to give you more right now because I'm still learning. I just need you to get there. And don't worry about packing, or just get to the airplane, blah, 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 blah. And then he says, I need you to get here. We think the shooting is race related, right? And so I said, okay, fine. Mississippi, race related, right? And so I have about, I'm going to the aircraft, what have you, and I call my dad just as we're getting ready to take off. I said, I'm just calling you and Mom to tell you that I'm going to Mississippi. We've had a shooting. I don't know any more than that. And my dad just simply says, you have everything you need inside of you, right? And so I tell people that, and I use this typically in a more senior level audiences because of a couple of things. We as leaders determine the environment that people have to walk into every day. And if you don't take that just as seriously as delivering your product, these are the kinds of things that can happen, right? And so I get there, I grab my director, say, I need you to go with me, I'll explain on the plane what have you, but we just got to go. And I land, and so there's a hotel we've set up in, and there's a war room and all those kinds of things. So we're trying to figure out, and the investigators are there. I mean, this is a maddening process, if you all can imagine. And I've been told initially, I've got one family that I've got to go visit. And the last thing you ever want to have to do is to go tell a family that Mom's not coming home today. And I vowed from that day forward, I'm never going to do this again. And I'll tell you guys, I have no idea what I said to the family that day. I can't remember. But I do remember the father sitting in the room. She had 2 daughters, probably 13 and maybe 13, 14, and maybe 9 or 10, if I've gotten that right. And the little one is saying to me, I keep calling my mom and she's not answering. Can I just please get her cell phone? Now, I can't take this cell phone off this investigative site, right? You all know that. But I'm saying to her, if I can get it for you, I will, right? And the older one, I mean, she's probably a little bit more aware what this means, right? The father is just angry. I can just see the hatred in his eyes. I mean, I can just feel it, right? And I would have been angry too, right? Here's the thing that bothered me about all of this. So I got through that. And true to form what my dad said, right? I knew how to write obituaries, so I wrote many of the family's obituaries. And the shooter had, of course, killed himself. Unfortunately, the people that he shot that died were all African American, right? He shot Caucasian and white people as well. They just lived, right? I even shot our plant manager. And a couple things. One, recognizing that somehow for this process, I became a de facto leader, right? I don't know if because I just stepped up to say, okay, look, we all got to get ourselves together here, right? We've got something to get done for this community. And so as a leader, it is your job to protect your other folks, right? I have in my office today, my home office now, but I even had it at my office at West Rock. When we got ready to, again, I'm leading how we're going to open the plant, because what you want to do in that process, you want to get your workforce back into the environment as quickly as you can, right? For psychological purposes, what have you. And so we decided that the closure and the rebirthing of the plant would be taking down the old flag and putting up a new flag. Remember, we're a very patriotic workforce. That's what we did at Lockheed. That's what we are at Lockheed Martin. And so you could hear a pin drop that day. And the team was like, Shan, we think you should fold the flag. I'm like, oh, Lord, I've never folded a flag. The ceremony, the flag folding ceremony. I've never done something. I'm a wreck at this point. But I knew how important it was to the team. I knew I needed to do this to get them through it. So I did it. We worked with the the military guy. He knew exactly what he was doing, one of the guys on the team. And we walked in the plant together that day, arm in arm. There was tears, there was crying. Even in Mississippi, I went to every funeral service except the shooters. Couldn't go to that one. I wrote obituaries. I took the kids shopping, right, so they'd be clothed and look beautiful on the day. But all of this, right, all of this is leadership. A couple of months later, because I needed a whole lot of rest. I was there for 2 weeks. I was exhausted by the time I got back. But I asked the head of HR, why did you ask me to take on this assignment? Why did you send me down there, right? And he said, because I knew you could pray. And I did. I prayed with all the families, right? Now, here's the thing. How did he know I could pray? Right? Because it's how we carry ourselves, right? People are always watching you. Somebody's always watching your behaviors, right? I wasn't walking around Lockheed Martin with my Bible, right? I probably should have been, but I wasn't, right? But he knew that there was something, right, that was different, right? The other thing that happened, so fast forward to, when I got to the operations job, I guess that was 2007 or 8 or what have you, I come to run the plant. So the plant in Marion, I told you I had 2 other plants, right? Mississippi and West Virginia. But now I got the Meridian plant under my purview. My first visit there, the oldest daughter walks up to me. And she said, I don't know if you remember me, but you came to my house and told me my mom was dead. And I'm thinking, oh my God, she's working for us, right? And so every year at that moment, at the date of the shooting, we do a little ceremony, what have you. So for 5, almost 6 years, I ran that facility. I'd go to Meridian, we chit-chat, we talk, and everybody went in. But every year, we stopped and have a ceremony. And the year that I was retiring, she said to me, Shan, you know what? We've healed. Let's not do this ceremony anymore. We're good here. I'm good here, right? And so it just, I love that we're talking about being true to yourself, but that's the power of really being true to who you are, right? That's what I really want you all to get today. You are more powerful than you'll ever know, right? But it's just like my dad said, everything you need is right here inside of you. It's all there, ladies. So stand boldly, right, for yourself, right? Resilience and relevance, right? That's what we're going to think about, right? And I know I'm out of time now, right? Good. Thank you all very much.